Hello, chat. Hello, everybody. Hello, people watching this later, which it will probably not be edited. One second, I need to adjust my mic. Eh, eh. Fuck it. It's good enough. Oh no, I'm demonetized because I said fuck too soon. That's okay. I don't get money from this anyway. Alrighty. So I have to adjust my mic because it picks up literally everything. So I gotta put it pretty far away from my face. Am I really a shark? That's up to you to decide. Before we get started, I want to cover a couple things. Number one, I kind of stole this image background thing from memes idea, but I like mine a little bit more because unfortunately, it looks like I'm a supervillain, which is funny because I did use Senator Armstrong. I don't know, for some reason I'm getting certain vibes from it, but I'm not gonna undo it because I think it's kind of neat, especially because the classroom's empty. But yes, I might be a shark. Who is this cringe lord? Your mother's boyfriend. Anyway, so yeah, we are going to go ahead and so today I want to explain the show. I don't even have a name yet. I just wanted to talk about this paper I wrote. Expect a lot of verbal screw ups. I did. I have recovered from a speech impediment, but it still comes back to haunt me every time I want to say anything. You look like a few teachers I've had in my day. I'm happy that you had swole teachers who were shark people. That would only happen in Australia, so it makes sense. But yeah, so let's go ahead and explain the show before we get started on the paper redo. So basically, the idea behind this show was that research is really hard to read for a lot of people. And either fortunately or unfortunately, most of my, how do you call it? Graduate degree. Jeez. My graduate degree was is mostly just research. It's kinesiology with an emphasis on exercise physiology. But when I was revamping my resume, I realized how many research classes I've taken. So this show serves a couple purposes. One is that those skills don't deteriorate over time. I am looking for a day job and I am hoping for a research job, but until then I need to make sure these skills are not deteriorating because I'm already realizing they are deteriorating. I already forgot the process. Excuse me. I already forgot the process to initiate clinical trials. So I don't really want those skills to deteriorate anymore. The second reason is that research is hard to understand. It's very boring, and it has to be boring because if you make it too entertaining, you are probably putting too much of yourself into the research. Hello. I hate your name because I don't know how to pronounce it. Sharasite. 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 It's weird saying people's name out loud, but and then because I had it in my head, I was like, oh, it's like a sherry site. But then when you say it out loud, it's like that's kind of silly, isn't it? I mean, unless that's right, and that's cool. But yeah, Shart City. I like that too. Oh, I got it right. Woo! Which time? Because I said like 3 different pronunciations. So that's not helpful at all. I wish you wrote that a little bit sooner. I like Shark City though. That's pretty funny. But yeah, so this is a pretty pathetic attempt to make research a little easier to digest. At some point, I do want to have a session. I think something about being a teacher, some shit about how to actually read research, because I don't read it like normal people, because obviously I had to do it for assignments. And for one systematic review, I had to read like 200 to 300 studies. I wouldn't recommend that to anyone. It's much easier to understand what you're looking for and go back and read. Because after about 3 studies, you kind of want to die. And not like a painless death. I mean agonizing. Teach me how to get swole with Bunsen burners. I wish I did stuff with... Well, okay, technically I did put stuff with Bunsen burners, but that was in chemistry class. The kinesiology classes I did, we didn't have fun stuff like that. Especially because most of those were in undergrad. I didn't even get to play with fun stuff in graduate school. In fact, I skipped the entire lab. It was like, oh, we're going to teach you how to lift. I was like, yeah, no, I'm going to go home early. Fuck you. I think I went on the first day and the last 2 days for testing. I even had one friend, she was like, oh, yeah, you should come. I'm like, why? Swole is chemistry. Lactic acid plus steroids equals, what would that equal? It would equal a lot of pain, because steroids help you recover faster, so then you just work harder, and that's a whole big thing. But yeah, how much time are we in? Only 10 minutes. That's not bad. But yeah, that's pretty much the goals of this show. Do not expect this regularly. I've tried that. I got burnt out pretty quick. Who knows? Maybe this will end up being regular, but at the same time, I wouldn't expect it. I just, at the moment, I will just do the show when I feel like it. That way I don't get burnt out. And obviously, if it gets big enough and, maybe I get to super chats and monetization, I might do it more regularly, because there is an extrinsic goal in mind. But when it's just intrinsic, I don't really, I'm a bit fickle. So at the moment, don't expect it regularly. Excuse me. See, my mic picks up everything. I closed my mouth and covered it, and the little mixer told me it picked up my burp. So this is a weird mic. I don't know if it's good or bad, because it's about 7 inches. It's about 7 inches from my face, and it picked that up. This would make a good boom mic. Anyway, so yeah, that's pretty cool. What else is there to talk about? I want to get the actual meat of the show started when we hit about 20 minutes. So, how is everyone doing? You did survive metal. Yes, you did. Yeah, I'm surprised you don't hear Metal's farts. In fact, this mic probably would pick up my farts. And I don't have Discord as a filter, because apparently Discord filters everything. But I have really loud farts. Sometimes they're wet, and that's depressing, but what can you do? It's crazy. I don't have protein shakes anymore, mostly because I can't afford them because I'm poor. But when I did, man, those farts, whew, about 50% of the time, I thought I was going to shit myself every time I farted. In fact, there was a time back in powerlifting, my coach was like, hey, you're going to do Romanian deadlifts, and you're going to do them at like 110% of your max, 3 rep max. And I was like, okay. So my first set, I think I had about 450 pounds on the bar, and I had a little bit of poop come out a little bit. And I'm like, nope, sorry, coach, I can't do this. Nope, nope, nope. I'm gonna go to the bathroom and I'm done. A little turtle head popping out my asshole. How much do you consume them daily when you had them? When I had protein shakes, it depends. In high school, I had them twice a day. So I had one after my morning training session and then one after the afternoon training session. Now, looking back on it, that was extremely excessive. I honestly didn't need that much. I got a lot of protein just through my diet. Uh, and then after high school, I chilled out a bit, but my training sessions were still like crazy. It's really interesting when a lot of people start lifting, especially depending on who you are, obviously, but they tend to start either severely underdoing it or severely overdoing it. I was on the severely overdoing it, so like I lifted 3 times a day, 5 times a week. So we had the morning session, I had the in class training session, and then I did after school weights. So I had 3 sessions a day, 5 days a week, which was fine at the time because I just recovered from it all. But I couldn't do that now. And obviously, as you get stronger, it becomes harder to train. Back in high school, I could do 225 for like, I think my peak was about 8 reps. And then at the end of college, I could do it for about 15. But obviously, that would be a lot more taxing, although I was a lot stronger. It's really cool because like as you get stronger, it takes more effort to do things. So if you were to, assuming Thor has somewhat human physiology, and he is the strongest of the Asgardians. It depends if you're going Norse Thor or Marvel Thor. Thor, but assuming they have mostly human physiology, it would take him a lot more effort to like move a mountain, even if that's only like 10% of his strength, than it would be to if you were to use 10% of your strength. I mean, I don't really know how strong God of War Thor is. I know relatively how strong the mythological one is because I've read a book on it, but I don't know. What if Shaggy used 10% of his strength? That would be, he'd probably be using a lot of effort, although it's only 10% because he's super crazy strong. There's some principle I forgot about. I know the principle, I forgot the name, where you only use, your body will only use as many muscle fibers as it needs to perform an action. So it's really crazy because I think, I don't know if EFAT makes this mistake or not. I've heard of people making this mistake where they will say, oh, well, this superhero is like super strong. How could they like push someone and they don't explode into a million pieces? And I'm like, maybe because they didn't do that? I don't know. There's so many weird things. One of these days I'm just going to have a huge live stream just talking about all the misconceptions of strength among the nerdier communities. Don't get me wrong, the fitness community is extremely fucking cringe too, and I have a lot of criticisms, like the anti-research crowd, they're retarded, and the science-based crowd. Especially with a character like Superman who has basically perfect control of his strength in most situations. Yeah, depending on how long you are strong, will determine how much control of your strength you'll have. Like this is a bit of a criticism in I'll start the actual show in a second. You could call this the pre-show, depending how depending on how you feel about the Disney movie Hercules. This is one of my criticisms. He's kind of wildly out of control of his strength when he wouldn't be. At the beginning. At the beginning, he just touches stuff and it like shatters. That probably wouldn't happen, especially at that age. He'd probably just be clumsy, and he'll be able to be like, "Oh no, I'm grabbing this pillar. I'm not going to be crazy and like break it." You know, he would have some concept of how much strength to use in every situation. It's like, do you have trouble opening a door? Probably not, because you've opened like a billion doors. Now, sometimes you'll see a very heavy door, and you'll be like, okay, I gotta put a lot of effort into this, and you'll do it, but then it's really light, and and the door will fly open. So yeah. Oh yeah, insect limbs are super fragile. But that's fun. You just rip them off. I'm kidding. Don't do that. Do it. I think EFAP is pretty good at judging based on portrayals of velocity of them, getting slammed into walls, etc., rather than the character's strength. I don't know. I would say so. I think they made mistakes, or it could be confusing their mistakes with the chat's mistakes, because that happened as well. Anyway, so that was a pre-show. Now I have to come up with an image for the pre-show. That'll be fun. But yeah, that's pre-show. Let's go ahead and get into the topic, and then we will have a short post-show. This is just to let people come in. That's ultimately the idea. Is that we're just gonna have a chill session for about 10 to 20 minutes, and then we talk about the actual topic, and then we have a little post show where we just talk again. Any questions that I might have missed, you can bring them back up, and then we end it there. Again, this will probably not be regular until either I have an extrinsic reason to make it regularly, or my passion for it just continues and continues. So, but I do want to just keep doing the show. I just don't expect it to be regular, because I also like to write a paper over topics before I cover them. That way I feel like I have an understanding of what I'm talking about. Last comment before we start. EFAP tends to mainly stumble when they don't have information about certain things, but they're quickly to admit said mistake if someone... Yeah. Awesome. Give podcast Fiverr. Oh, Meme, you're on point today. Good jokes. Alright, let's begin. So, how this will work is, again, stealing ideas from Meme. We'll go through each section, and then I will have like a couple minutes to answer questions over that segment, and then we'll move on to the next segment. That way, I'm communicating with y'all. At the same time, we are getting covered what needs to get covered. And then at the end, I will have a bigger question and answer section. Okay, so to begin, basically, this was a little systematic review. It's not a true systematic review. I did it very casually, and I only covered other reviews. But I think I covered about 12 reviews and one meta-analysis. This won't go into detail about all of them, but the idea is to present major findings that I found among most of the reviews. So first, let's start off with what is ADHD. ADHD is crap. I didn't write down the meaning of the acronym. But I'm sure most of you know. I'll just go over what I've written. ADHD is one of the most common neurodevelopmental disorders in children. ADHD is often diagnosed in childhood and continues into adulthood. People with ADHD may have trouble paying attention, controlling impulsive behaviors, or being overly active. Yeah. Of course, this is not the limit of the symptoms of people with ADHD. Wait, no. Of course, this is not the limit of symptoms people with ADHD may suffer. There are three main types of ADHD: predominantly inattentive presentation, predominantly hyperactive impulsive presentation, and combined presentation. Predominantly inattentive presentation is when it's hard for an individual to organize or finish a task, to pay attention to detail, or to follow instructions or conversations. Predominantly hyperactive impulsive presentation is when a person fidgets and talks a lot. Individuals affected with this type of presentation may have more injuries or accidents just because they're moving so much and they might be slightly clumsy. Combined presentation is obviously a combination of both, and presentation is not static. It can change over time. So you could be one presentation when you're a child, it can change to the other, it might end up being combined, it might change back. So that's obviously another thing when it comes to ADHD, that it's not a static condition. There are static conditions that, it presents itself and it will almost always be like that. But ADHD is not that. You can change over time. And obviously that means you might have different problems. You might have difficulty in one thing. Now that's gotten better. Now you have difficulty in other things. You can go to the Meme Repositories channel, who is in the chat right now. He has, I guess you should go to his podcast. He covers ADHD better, and it's from a more personal view. This is basically what I got from, I think, the CDC. So, again, go to him if you want a more detailed analysis and breakdown of what ADHD is. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. Thank you, Meme. But yeah, go to his podcast. He goes into it better than I could. I could present you all the facts and all the scientific reasoning, but that doesn't always convey how difficult it might be for an individual with that condition. Moving on, exercise is an effective tool, right? It helps you become healthier, increases strength, endurance, has a myriad of beneficial effects. And it can be as effective as medication for many mental conditions in many individuals, but there's a caveat to that. Some people, it's just not that effective. Exercise is a great treatment option for depression, but there will be individuals who they just need medication. I'm not exactly sure why, but ultimately, you can't always fix it with exercise. The point of this, the point of this live stream is basically to present the current understanding of exercise as a treatment for ADHD. and obviously discuss it because, like I said, this was relatively fast. This was a quick turnaround. I think Meme Covered had its first episode 2 weeks ago, and I'm already doing a podcast over it. Usually this would take a lot longer, but this is far more casual. So, yeah. I want to discuss it, so if you have thoughts, ideas, opinions, tell me about them, and we can obviously discuss what I know, what I don't know, and move on from there. And obviously, people who are watching this not live, feel free to throw your comments down. I doubt this video will blow up, so I will read every comment. If it blows up and gets like 1,000,000 views, A, I'm doing this way more often, and B, that's just more people with more perspectives that you can read. So, if it doesn't, I can read everyone's perspective. If not, there'll be a larger pool of perspectives you could read. So, yeah, that's the end of the introduction. Any thoughts, ideas, whatever, what have you. Let's read the chat real quick while y'all might be throwing any thoughts or whatever. I think the last thing I read was my best jokes are at 1 a.m. That's often when my best jokes are, but that's more due to general grumpiness from non-sleep. Yeah, ADHD ebbs and flows, gets better, gets worse, gets better again. Management and treatment depends on a wide variety of different things, including exercise. Yeah, we will, there's some findings I found. Obviously, that's what you do with findings, find them. So that was a silly statement. But there are some findings that came up that pertain to that thing. So, in fact, there is one significant weakness of of the current understanding that pertains to that. I hope it does too, Chart City, share a site. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to make your name into a joke or say it correctly. We'll figure it out. Since there's not a lot of discussion here, I guess mostly because I was just presenting information. We'll just go ahead and move on from there. So, yeah, yeah, research is always going. That's something I this live stream is also practice for me to stop slurring all my words because although I am not drunk, for some reason I slur everything. So that's also helpful. Yeah, so research on pretty much everything is ongoing. We will never understand anything perfectly, and when we do, it's super specific. It's kind of one of my pet peeves when someone confuses a theory with a hypothesis, because scientifically speaking, a hypothesis is a educated guess, as y'all should know. So you take what you know and you're like, oh, okay, well, this is probably how it works. A theory is something that we understand to be true, but we just don't have enough evidence. Essentially, a theory is an explanation. So, for example, if I were to say the reason why Twitter is dumb is because it's open to everyone. Can I prove this? No. That's not really a... well, yeah, I can. I could be like, well, this person, blah, 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 blah. The hypothesis would be, Twitter is dumb. The theory is the explanation behind that. Well, no, that's not correct either. A theory is a potential explanation for a phenomenon. So, if there is something that happens in nature, a theory is just, so this is what we think, this is all our evidence for this, and etc. And the prevailing theory always matters which one has the most evidence, and is that evidence sound? So, when it comes to ADHD, it's, I guess the best way to think about it is, yes, we are always researching it because there are no scientific laws about ADHD. And scientific laws aren't even a great source to rely upon because they are always super specific. This is another pet peeve I have with a lot of media podcasts. They take which one is it? One of the laws. Let's just say force. Force equals mass times acceleration. They take that a little too literally because they will say, well, if you hit X at this, you have this person and they're not moving fast enough because of, no. Captain America kick. That one's a good one. Oh, Captain America kicked this guy and he went flying. Shouldn't he go flying too? Well, yes and no. Because if you just look at the scientific law of force, yes, but you also have to consider direction of force. You have to consider friction. You have to consider weight and size, and then you have to consider biomechanics, which throws a wrench into physics because the body creates physics in a little bit of a different way. It's not something that physicists can't understand, but there are more factors that you have to consider. So, yeah, research, scientific laws, theories, hypotheses, a lot of them are slightly misunderstood by just a lot of people. But luckily, it's only slightly, which is nice because they can easily be corrected again. Anyway, that's a good couple minutes. Let's go ahead and move on to the next part. So this is going to be my main findings. I guess I should present how I got here real quick. So basically, I kept this real simple. I went on PubMed. I don't know if that's available all over the world. It should be. But I went on PubMed. I typed in exercise and ADHD. I think I got about 50 or so results. And any one of them that did not exactly pertain to that in some fashion, I ignored. And then of the reviews that did pertain to it, I ignored, like, there was one review that examined a lot of mental conditions. I ignored pretty much anything that wasn't ADHD because that's what I was focusing on. Of course, those papers might come back later because they cover other things. And although I don't know if I will be covering exercise as a treatment for X disease next time, but I do want to do that later. At some point, at least. Is that a pub for doctors? It's a pub for, yeah. It kind of is, actually. Everyone puts their research on there, and, sometimes you'll get replies. It's just a big old hangout for research papers pertaining to biomedical things. Anyway. So, Meme, I hope your anxiety is not super high today because we're going to talk about some slightly scary things. Okay? So, one of the findings I found, I keep doing that. One of the findings I have uncovered is a bit more concerning than the others. Current medication for ADHD presents several dangers, including that they can cause modest elevations in resting heart rate and blood pressure, as well as showing reports of conditions including arrhythmia, non-ischemic cardiomyopathy, Tatsubo cardiomyopathy, and sudden death associated with ADHD stimulants. The frequency of prescriptions are rapidly increasing, and the side effects of medications have a higher likelihood of affecting adults with ADHD at the age of 50 and beyond. So that's the more negative stuff. Here's some more positive things. Exercise has been found in multiple reviews to increase hormones that a person with ADHD needs, such as dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. Also, obviously, exercise is cheap, has almost no negative side effects except for the odd injury occasionally, and can reduce or even eliminate the need for medication. So, yeah, essentially, the idea here, the main findings is that, like with a lot of pharmaceutical interventions, there are side effects. It's almost unavoidable. Like maybe in the future, I'm sure there are. I know there are medications that have just been around so long that we know the side effects, and we've reduced most of them to either be virtually non-existent or not a concern for the majority of the population. However, because ADHD is a bit, I wouldn't call it a newer disease, but it is something that is a bit, I would say, the public eye is now on it in a different way than it used to be. I'm sure back in the earlier days, while it wasn't, I would assume that only really bad cases of ADHD were given attention early on. And now that we know that it's more prevalent than we thought it was, that it's not always just bad behavior. Of course, you have kids who are actually disruptive and etc. You also have kids who can't help it. And there were reviews that went over basically different ideas of, you know, if kids get enough exercise, they're usually better off. If you have classes outside that are active, you know, things that unfortunately we are moving away from, although they would be the better direction to go in. And obviously, work is another issue because ADHD doesn't, as far as I'm concerned, usually doesn't go away. It, like meme says, it ebbs and flows, and maybe some people it's high as a child and then it's lower later. But I would assume usually it ebbs and flows. It changes presentation. It's non-static. And with more jobs becoming sedentary, you sit at a desk at a computer for 8 hours a day, staring at a screen. You go home. You're probably not going to go exercise unless you have like a dog. In that case, you walk the dog. But even then, and I'm even guilty of this, where you don't really walk the dog, you take them out for like maybe a small stroll around your block, or you take them to the backyard or whatever, and you don't really get a lot of exercise in. And in that case, the increase in sedentary lifestyle is a theory of why mental disorders are increasing. It's not even that, as far as I'm concerned, about this theory. It's not that mental disorders are increasing. It's that we are becoming less active. And so it's almost like these the numbers haven't increased, but because less people are active, the natural treatment for it is decreased. So it seems like it's increasing, but really activity's decreasing. That's a theory. Obviously, I don't even know how you would even start to prove that. But I think just looking at how society's going, you could probably put two and two together. Ultimately, we don't know, especially for ADHD, because after this section, we are going to get into issues that the studies bring up. It's like, yeah, while it is promising, there are issues that we do need to solve before we can actually move into using this ultimately. But let's see what the chat has to say. And obviously, that might spark more discussion. It might not. We will see. Um, Slightly scary things for Spooky Ween. Neato. Yeah, but this isn't fun spooky. This is, oh my god, I might die suddenly. Spooky. Yeah, I had to keep a close eye on how meds were affecting me in the first few months. I had a slightly higher heart rate for the first few months. Then my body adjusted and I was fine. Yeah, I could imagine that happening. Yeah, you know, waiting for the brain implants to inject dopamine directly into my prefrontal cortex. One day, meme. One day we will all have robotic bodies. I mean, I won't because I worked hard for my muscles, but I would like some some cybernetics, but not too many. Right? I worked hard for what I have. I don't want to cheat myself out. That's like a huge problem I have with edge runners. David cheated. He just got all these implants. It's like you're not even swole. You bought your swollenness. Go. That's not fair. The problems with me as a kid were that my slightly higher sensitivities, thanks to my ADHD, made me less willing to exercise when I was younger. So it was a catch 22 in my case, though other kids are different. Yeah, that's something we're going to get into. That while exercise does show promise, they're obviously different. Individuals have different capacities. And for me, I need a balance of medication and exercise. One doesn't tend to function as well without the other, but everyone's different. Again, that's another thing I'm going to bring up. I think I brought it up. I think theoretically, the best case scenario for a lot of people with ADHD is that they could take less medication if they have a regular exercise program. If they can actually follow the guidelines, they might be able to use less medication, and ultimately, that would be the best case. I would assume that people with how do you describe it? Like less severe cases of ADHD will be able to just use exercise and be just fine as long as they are consistent. I mean, that's my hope anyway. There are problems we're about to get into that obviously are a barrier for this, but with the research and the actual application of this idea, there's implementation. No, let's just go with application. That's a bit easier for me to say right now. Interestingly, my little speech impediment, it's very inconvenient because there will be words I want to say, and my brain will be like, we don't know how to say them right now. But as soon as I'm done, needing that word, it'll be like, okay, you can say that word now. It's fine. It's like, why do you do that, brain? That's not funny. It makes me sound stupid. Last chat before we move on to the next section. Absolutely, meds should always be a tool in conjunction with other things, never a crutch. Meds can help keep exercise consistent and help people get back on the wagon if they fall off. Yeah, sure. I guess just for my studies, because I took exercise psychology and we had a large section on mental disorders and exercise as an evolutionary imperative and all these things. Also, I had a client who, his wife had or has diabetes. Like, you know? And her first doctor was very much a medication person. Medication person, medication person. And her other doctor was like exercise, exercise, exercise. So, in my perspective, at least, if you don't need to get on meds, you shouldn't be on meds. If there's an alternative, obviously exercise. If you could do that and be fine, I would I would almost push for that, but I'm not a doctor. I don't entirely know. So, if there is a way to do that, like move towards exercise, I guess, and get off medication, I would push for that. But as I said earlier, there are some people, they just can't get off medication if they want to function. So, in that case, I would be like, if there's any way we can reduce the medication they are on, that would be good too. Because, like I said, a lot of these medications they have side effects, and depending on what doctor you have, they might recommend more medication to handle those side effects. So it can become a pretty vicious cycle of medication, side effects, more medication, side effects, etc. So whatever you could do to reduce the need for more medication, I would almost push for that. But again, I'm not a doctor. I don't even understand the pharmaceutical side that well. I'm more on the obviously I'm more I know more about the exercise side. But you know, that be how it be. Hi Oobly and Utat. You're almost Utah. Is it pronounced Utat or Utat? Who knows? Maybe it's you shit. I'm kidding. You're not shit. I mean, you might be, but I don't know you, so I'm going to assume you're not shit. Yeah, speech impediments suck ass. I even went to a fucking speech therapist to fix this, and I'm still stuck with it. It's like, what was your job? I mean, obviously, it is way better than it used to be, but I still slur my words. But I think that's something I can control. I just need to practice. No, you don't know. Okay, well, I will call you Utat. Since it's alien and Utat doesn't sound as cool as Utat. I'm glad there are people in this stream. My other streams, there were nobody in there, and I was just talking to nobody. My volume is a little... Well, I have my volume at max, so I don't know what else to do. I could talk a little bit louder, but then I'm peaking a little bit in the red. So, I will just try to talk slightly louder because I have my audio maxed, and my background audio is really low. And by the way, meme, that ducking thing is brilliant. I can have background noise to hide my refrigerator doing things, and it doesn't interfere with me talking, which is neat. Yeah, medication is there's a lot of reasons why if you can get off medication, you should. But obviously, I don't know everything. Um, it's I've said this on the Discord before, but most doctors do not have any kind of like education on exercise and nutrition. Which you might be like, oh my god, why don't they? It's like because they have to learn all this pharmaceutical crap. Like it's very hard to like there's a lot to learn as a doctor. I don't blame them at all for not having the full scope on like nutrition and exercise. I don't at all. It's they have so much to learn. The fact that they learn most of what they do is incredible. I think it'd be worse in the U.S. with prescription, isn't it? One of the reasons behind the opioid crisis. I honestly don't know. I've never looked into the opioid crisis. I just know a lot of people do drugs. Yeah, that's another problem. Yeah, it's just there's so much to learn in like the medical field that you just have to find the right person for your problems. And that can be really tough. You might have to go through a lot of doctors. You might actually go through some phases where you're not getting any better and the doctor's doing the best they know how to do. And you're just going to have to find a new doctor. It's like, yeah, you tried, but you're not the one for me. Anyway, we are going to go ahead and move on to the next section. This one's a little bit shorter, but I will try to inject some my own thoughts. I just have notes up. I don't even have a second monitor. I have a second monitor, but I don't have room on my desk, and the computer I had to buy when my laptop died, um, it doesn't have a lot of ports for me to plug in things, so I have a couple problems already. So I'm using my phone for my notes. But yeah. I know prescriptions of opium based on drugs have increased, and that was cited as one of the factors. Then I'm not following it closely as well, so take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, that's my perspective on a lot of things too, where I will have a thought about it, but I'll always, unless I know for sure, I will always be, but I don't know for sure. This didn't make it in my notes, but apparently the diagnoses for ADHD has increased. I want to say about, let's say at least 200%. And the prescriptions for adult women, okay, bye Oobly. This probably won't be that long. Not that I have a ton to do, other than apply for more jobs. But I'm not super interested in having a super long stream. No offense to anyone who does. I'm new to it. I'm bringing myself in, and obviously it's based on how much I write. But yeah, we are pretty much halfway done at this point. And I had the pre-show, and I'll have a little bit of the outro. Short Sharkman bad. Yes I am. But I will get longer over time. And as an eldritch Sharkman myself, I will bite Mahler at some point, and he won't even know it. I mean, he will because he'll be missing a tentacle. I will disappear back into the gym and go back to working out in a suit. Anyway, let's go to the problems of that they brought up. Problems that they brought up that were consistent with a lot of studies. So the first problem that came up is that most of the studies they reviewed, like all the reviews reviewed, was that only aerobic exercise was tested. This is actually really common in a lot of exercise psychology realms where they only really focus on aerobic exercise. Like, if you look at the research of exercise treating depression, most of it's aerobic. Not a lot of it's anaerobic or resistance training, which, might have merits, but ultimately, you're going to have a harder time getting someone who prefers lifting to. You're going to have a harder time getting someone who prefers lifting to start running regularly. I've even tried running regularly, and I hate running, by the way. I did it so much in high school football, and when I played college rugby, one day it just struck me. It's like, I hate running. Why am I doing this? This sucks. So I quit. But yeah, only really aerobic exercise was tested. So people who might prefer HIIT or like lifting or calisthenics, that becomes a problem because we don't know how effective that is. For them, it might be super effective, which is awesome. But in that scenario, I hope I didn't break anything. In that scenario, that's just them. We can't apply that to a large population. Where people, oftentimes people will criticize studies because they'll be like, oh, well, you only did this population. What about this outliers? Like, science doesn't cover outliers. You have to kind of test things on yourself to know if they are effective on you. What research does is cover the general. Generally, exercise is great for everyone. You might have Tom Tittenbottom, some random fucker, who exercise causes his asshole to bleed. Well, I'm not going to base my research conclusions on Tom Tittenbottom, whose asshole bleeds every fucking time he fucking runs 5 feet. What am I supposed to do about that? There's nothing I can do about that. Figure it out for yourself, but understand why research does what it does. Like, generally, everyone else, you exercise. Tom, you sit the fuck down, okay? You figure out something else. I don't know. Your asshole's weird. So, when you only study aerobic exercise, you're actually leaving out a lot of people. And that's not to say you shouldn't study aerobic exercises' effect on... You shouldn't exclude aerobic exercises' effect on... My brain just stopped for a second. Hold on. You shouldn't just focus on aerobic exercise to study its effects on mental conditions. It's important, don't get me wrong, but other studies should look into what about resistance training? What about calisthenics? What about... Calisthenics are resistance training. What about lifting or HIIT? Even CrossFit. As stupid as CrossFit is, a lot of people do it. There's this new exercise phenomenon. It is honestly it's honestly stupider than CrossFit. I have a lot to criticize about CrossFit, but this new thing, I'm going to bring it up one day. I'm going to show y'all. It is beyond, it's just injuries waiting to happen. Holy crap. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. There is a lack of long-term studies. As I mentioned before, ADHD changes over time. Everyone's a little bit different. So, while there are long-term studies, there's not a lot of them. Someone with ADHD might be... they might present one way, and they might exercise regularly and might need no medication. And then 2 years later, they have combined presentation, and now they need medication to support their exercise. And then a few years later, they're back to just exercise. So because it ebbs and flows over time, longer-term studies are important. The problem is funding longer-term studies and keeping people involved in longer-term studies. Because A, longer-term studies are expensive. Short-term studies are expensive. At my old school, we had a DEXA machine. It's super cool. It looks like an MRI machine. It basically shows you how much fat you have, how much muscle you have, how much mass is your organs, connective tissue. It's really cool. Gold standard. That is about, I want to say, $100,000 at the very least. Probably way more. Now, that's just the machine. You have to think about moving the thing, assembling it, powering it. You're looking at about, depending on how often you use it, probably about $1 million, depending on how often you use it. Now, if you're going to use that over a long period of time, depending how long your period of time is, that's really rough. That's extremely taxing on the researchers as far as money goes. And obviously, keeping people involved in longer term studies is difficult. If you have an 8-week study, you will obviously have dropouts. That number will increase the longer the study goes. So, and that's for multiple reasons. Maybe they don't want to do it. Maybe their life got busy. Maybe their wife just had a kid and they can't participate in the study anymore. It's really tough. It's tough to conduct longer term studies. So that does hurt the application of these things. There's also a lack of testing on a range of ADHD severity. So, someone who's like very slightly ADHD versus someone who they can barely function, and everything in between. So maybe an exercise regimen is better for the person who's slightly ADHD. Might be good for them. It might even like just make them, I don't want to say normal, but I'm going to say normal because this isn't a PC stream. I already do the people first talk, which is basically you put people with this instead of ADHD people. You put the person first. I think that's fine. I think that's awesome. I am not going to make it I'm not doing a bunch of accommodations. So let's say normal people or people without ADHD. Let's say exercise basically makes them basically without ADHD. Okay? But what about people who have it so severely they can't even function? How does it affect them? How does it affect someone right in the middle? Or slightly less functional, or slightly more functional? You have to test all these scenarios. And it's difficult because you can't automatically look at someone or have like a standardized testing procedure to be like, okay, you are very slightly ADHD, or how do you even function? It's you can't just do that. I mean, you can, but it's difficult to do that. You have to somehow figure out how to do it standardized and have it accurate, which creates another research problem that someone else has to do that might not even be that far along. This is part of the reason why scientific things take a long time. It's always weird when you, in like movies, when you see someone like, oh, I've discovered the cure to kryptonite poisoning. It's like, how did you do that? Like, how long did it take you? And they're like, oh, I just needed the right inspiration. It's like, no, that would have taken you at least decades. Because not only do you have to figure out what kryptonite poisoning is, you have to figure out the different severities of it. You have to figure out how to treat it. You have to figure out if the treatment's effective for high poisoning or low poisoning, etc., etc. That's just a small pet peeve I have with a lot of media. Be prepared. I'm going to compare a lot of this to movies and video games I watch because as someone who's done a lot of research and's been in the sphere, when I see like the science type thing on screen, I have a lot of criticisms. So many criticisms. I was like, that's not how that works at all. And same thing with reviewers. I have criticisms with their assessments too. Fucking, I think like 75% of the world thinks science is magic. Instead of like, no, it's a very slow process of us understanding how things work. They're like, no, it's like the opposite of magic. It's like, no, it's not. If we had magic in our world, we would break it down scientifically. Which is why Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is a great show and everyone should watch it. Because it basically does that. It takes magic and makes it scientific. Which would happen in any world with magic. If it's a part of the world, it would be broken down by science. It is not the opposite. Don't do that. I think there's a quote in some movie or some person said, if technology is so advanced, it's basically magic. It's not actually magic. It's just you don't understand it. So you attribute it to magic. Anyway, let's continue. It's crazy how easy it is to get on little tangents. I see why EFAP always goes on for 8 hours, because I don't have anyone here, and yet I've gone on like 50 small tangents. I guess it's just being a nerd. Anyway, let's see, the last main issue. I think I covered a couple more in the paper, but these are like the bigger ones. Is that there's no standard. This is more of an application problem rather than an issue with the studies. There's no standard recommendation for. There is no standard exercise recommendation for ADHD symptoms. There's none. So why is that a problem? That's a problem because while we do know exercise is absolutely it's promising for a treatment option, we don't have any standards for it. So, for example, let's take Meme for example. Okay, Meme's pretty open about his neurodivergence. I hate that word. That seems so long for no reason. Anyway, let's take him for example. Okay, I remember him saying, "I want a personal trainer who understands ADHD." He's probably not going to find that anytime soon. Why? There's no standards for it. At the very least, you might have someone who's been like, "Oh yeah, I've trained a lot of people with ADHD," but honestly, he could just be getting really lucky on how he trains them. Or it could just be exercise in general helps them. Because there's no standard. It's because it's really obvious that we are still really early in the stages of testing exercise as a treatment for ADHD because there are no standards. We don't even know what we're testing half the time. We're just like, well, does it work? It's like, yeah, it helps with all these chemicals that people with ADHD need. And it's like, oh, okay, good. We're moving in the right direction, which is excellent. Don't get it twisted. This is excellent, but there is no standard. Okay, what's the standard for aerobic exercise? The ACSM says 150 minutes a week. Now, obviously, that can be divided in 1,000 different ways per person. But that's your standard person. That's how much exercise they need. How much exercise do you need to consistently keep up your dopamine levels in your brain? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. That is a how do I say this? That is already a difficult and expensive study to run. But you can't just run off of one. You can't be like, okay, well, one person did it. We'll just use those results for everything. You can't do that. There's precedent for that, but that's more for ethical reasons. I won't get into, but Boogie does for reasons he shouldn't. Anyway, that's usually for ethical reasons. If you cannot repeat a study for whatever reason, it hurts its credibility. So, in that case, we run into different issues. So, because there is no standard, we can't teach trainers how to deal with it. There are attempts to. I think most personal training textbooks have a special population section. And even I took a class over special populations. But, and this might be disparaging a little bit, there wasn't usually a section over ADHD, or it was small and included with another section. Autism gets an entire section. Down syndrome gets an entire section. Injury-related mental disorders get an entire section. ADHD doesn't. And I don't think that's because people don't take it seriously. At least that scope of like special populations individuals. It's not that they don't take it seriously. It's that there's not really a way to deal with it. We're not far enough along to write down an entire section on how to train people with ADHD. We're just not, and that is obviously a problem. But it's not. It's not a. It won't be a problem forever. But at the moment, it is. So everyone individually, they're just going to have to test on themselves until we get there, and that does suck. But there's nothing we could do about it at the moment, except for keep hammering away at it. I wonder if I could get my professor to get on one of these. I don't know if I could. Because my schedule is very different than most people's schedule. In fact, if I do remember correctly, when he's not teaching, he's rarely at home. Because he's a weird hippie type. He likes to ride bikes in the mountain and do funny stuff with his wife, who is an artist, by the way, who sells her art for like $20,000 a piece. It's really good art, and I can see people buying it, but holy shit, that is a lot of money. Anyway, so yeah, that is the end of the problems and issues section. It seems like we've gotten a lot of chats in this one, so let me pull up a little chat window so I can scroll back up. Alright, let's talk with the Chatteroonie. I think Short Shark Man Bad was the last thing before I started this section. Let's read through the chat and then we will go to the conclusion and wrap it up. Let's see. Oh man, 1 second. I'm gonna drink some water. Might be a little loud, so I'm gonna mute. Where is it? Chatteroonie, here we go. Hello, chat. Let's see. I find another benefit of exercise. I find another benefit exercise has with ADHD is the reduction of aches and pains, which is a huge distraction, which can be, you forgot the B, can be a huge distraction to someone with ADHD. When I was doing weight training consistently, I was so productive. Yes, I actually did a paper over exercise helping with chronic pain. Really interestingly, a lot of chronic pain is just due to muscle weakness. I hate lifting by some reason. I'm going to assume you're saying for some reason. Yeah, I find that a lot of people don't like lifting. I'm curious why. It might be, what I've also found is that usually it is a form of lifting. People who hate weights usually really like calisthenics. People who don't like calisthenics really like weights. Some people really like circuit training. Some people really like traditional straight sets or pyramid sets. So for the most part, I don't think anyone hates resistance training. It's usually due to the form of resistance training. I gotta get better at enunciating. Man, I saw Rags' video on organized chaos, which I did a video too, and mine's a lot shorter and doesn't have my talking in it. But he made fun of how he talked, and I felt bad because I'm like, oh, I gotta enunciate my words more. So that is something I am also working on. Meme apparently loves Tom's bleeding asshole, so I guess someone got the God damn it, speech impediment right when I want to make a funny joke at Meme's expense to come up. I was gonna say Meme got his Red wings. See, now the joke's ruined because my stupid fucking speech impediment. Which is why text is better sometimes. Because that can't come up. I could just say my mean jokes at other people's expense. Yes, there is a lack of studies on bodybuilding. There's a couple of reasons for that. Training science is what I'll call it. Training research is super new, so bro science is taking over. And there is like a really odd movement of anti-research people in the fitness community. There are more reasonable ones. Alex Bromley's a reasonable one. He criticizes research, but he also is like, yeah, I acknowledge it has its purpose, but goes into his reasons. I don't agree with a lot of his reasons, but he's more reasonable about it. Then you have someone like Bald Omni-Man, who apparently built his brand on shitting on the optimal movement group of people, which I haven't seen many of the arguments he memes about, so I feel like he's fucking strawmanning pretty hard. Yeah, anti-research. I'll have an episode on it at some point. It's really odd. Basically, it's a position that training research, I guess, is entirely useless. And personal experience is better, which I would strongly push against. It's like, no, personal experience is not better because it's personal experience. It's like anecdotes or case studies. It's like anyone can lie. And not only that, what about genetics? Imagine if I said, hey, if you train like me, you'll look like me, and then you don't, and now you're upset. It's like, no, my genetics are different than yours. You start at what is backed by research. I'm not saying take any peer-reviewed study and go with that. No. But what's backed by research, you start with that, and then you self-experiment from there. Because some things might work for you better than others, which is fine. But you start with research, and you move from there. You don't start at someone else's fucking experience and jerk off with that and see if you come. That was a really weird analogy. But I think it works out. You don't start off with someone else's experience and move from there. You start off with what we do know. In fact, I criticize the science-based community quite a bit because half of them are fucking idiots anyway. What you should honestly do is you hire a coach or you read a textbook. That's where you should start. Hire a coach or buy a free program. There's so much information online. Despite me just criticizing Alex Bromley, he's incredibly smart. He has issues with training science, which is fine. Start with him. Start with Mike Israetel. There's so many BioLane. If you want the more nutrition side, he's very smart too. Start with those guys. The really smart people don't just take studies and run with it. They take it and they're like, this is potentially X, Y, or Z, or whatever. And this is the implications, but hold on, don't jump to conclusions. That's what really smart people do. They try to take new information, process it, put some grains of salt on there, and then present it. Or they present it in a way that's easily digestible. This is the goal of this live stream. I'm trying to do anyway, is to take information that is actually difficult to understand and make it easier to understand. The people who just take a random fucking study and jump to conclusions off of that are just as stupid as the people who say all research and studies are useless. They are about as fucking stupid as each other. I'm sorry, I get kind of passionate about that a little bit. Anyway, let's keep going. In fact, we're just going to move to the conclusion so I can focus on chat for a bit. Because I do want this to end around an hour and a half, but I'm not like super strict on that. But I also have to pee. So, In conclusion, then we will go back to the chat. In conclusion, exercise as a treatment for ADHD shows a lot of potential. I think possibly in the future we will reach a point where we aren't limited by just we aren't limited by just medication. We will be able to get more people off of medication or reduce medication. But at the moment, we're not there yet. So as long as you meet pretty regular exercise standards, 150 minutes of moderate exercise, that could be lifting, that could be walking. Walking is super underrated. It is crazy how underrated walking is. I think I was in Fringy's chat and I was like, walking's pretty good exercise. And he was like, nah, I just don't consider walking exercise. Or something along those lines. And I was baffled. I'm like, oh my god, walking is like one of the best exercises you could do. For a few reasons. One, you don't have to be in shape to walk. While running is a lot better, you have to be in shape to run. Take someone who's never exercised and tell them, hey, run 4 miles. They aren't making it. Tell them to walk 4 miles. They might be hurting a little bit near the end, but they can do it. The biggest benefit of easier exercise is that A, everyone can do it, and everyone can do it for longer. Bye, you Ted. I'm not going to go much longer anyway, so thank you for showing up. I highly appreciate it. Same thing with Oobly, but I didn't think about saying that. So fuck you, Oobly. I'm kidding. You're cool. So yeah, 150 minutes of aerobic exercise, about moderate intensity, and doing some form of resistance training on every body part at least twice a week. If you do that, I am sure that it will, obviously everyone should do it, but if you have ADHD, I'm sure it will help make your medication more effective, reduce the medication you need, or help with your ADHD to the point where you don't even need medication. Obviously, if you have an active job, that helps a lot too. So ultimately, hopefully, exercise can be a extremely viable medication for ADHD without the side effects of pharmaceuticals. So hopefully in the future we get to that point. If not, it is what it is. Obviously, medication does have side effects, and some of them can be very dangerous. Considering, right, as we learn more about exercise as a treatment option, we are also learning more about medication and how to reduce side effects. So, no matter what, as time goes on, everything will get better for people with ADHD, and it can only get better from here. Unless an alien race comes by and decides y'all are great for some reason and takes your spinal fluid, things will just get better. So, I just wanted to talk about it, maybe present more information. Hopefully, everyone here got something from it. If you're watching this later, I hope you got something from it. Yeah, that was the entire goal. So, that's pretty much the end of the class session. I need to come up with a video for the after class and stuff. But yeah, I'm just going to catch up with chats and anything else y'all want to talk about. First I gotta catch up, and then we'll see what everyone has to say, and then we will wrap up. Again, this show will not be regular. I don't even have the next topic to cover at the moment. If you're in Discord, if I do come up with a topic, you will know, and then the process will start coming around. This was a lot of fun, so expect another episode. I don't even know what to call this series. So think of this more as a proof of concept episode, which I am totally happy with. By the way, I'm not editing this. It's going up exactly how it went. It's going up exactly as it is now. Why am I not editing it? You might be wondering. Well, because I'm lazy. That's honestly it. There's no fancy reason like, oh, I want it to be real and stuff. It's like, no, I'm too lazy to edit. I'm very inconsistent with editing, and I don't want to hear my voice any more than I have to. So, yeah. Let's catch up with chat, and we will continue doing stuff. Plus, I gotta beat Metal. If Metal comes on, all of y'all are gonna leave. All four of you, and then I'm gonna be sad. No, I'm not, because I'm gonna go over to Metals, because I got bullied. He hasn't been bullied in 2 days. I'm hurting. He's not hurting. I gotta play my game. By the way, Stranger of Paradise. I know everyone memes on that game, but the gameplay is mwah, fantastic. DLC's fun too. Where are we? I think we stopped right around hating lifting. Okay. People do CrossFit because it gives a sense of community, as far as I know. Yeah, I think that's the main reason. Although sometimes it gets a kind of culty, and apparently they show super favoritism in judging. It's kind of insane. Like, there's this whole video series about Danny Spiegel, who is very attractive and has the best thighs. Oh my god, crush me with your thighs. Mwah. I can only say that because my girlfriend's not here. If she heard that, she'd give me funny looks, but she understands I am a thigh man. Big muscular thighs are my weakness. And the only reason I don't play Chun-Li in Street Fighter is because fuck charge characters. They're very hard to use. Anyway. But yeah, CrossFit, it's not the worst exercise modality out there. There are much... If you want to see something stupid, look up I think it's Gridiron League. It's CrossFit, but worse. Because they make up more shit, and everything is erased. Which will lead to more injuries, worse form. It's awful. I watch it to laugh. And because a lot of the girls have big asses. But mostly to laugh. And for the asses. Anyway, let's continue. Another problem I had... Wait, no, I should read the first one. Yeah, it's why studies are often split into age groups, as trying to see what helps kids versus adults is going to have a huge gap in needs. Yep, definitely. Sorry, there's not much to engage with that one, though. That's just a good comment. Another problem I had is that my ADHD caused me to rush through my exercises, which often compromised the results because I was going through the rough movements with improper technique. What do you mean by that meme? Like, were you rushing through each rep? Or were you rushing through the entire exercise session? Because, like, if say, a long training session is a problem for you, then you could change how you train. For example, what I do with a lot of my clients, I don't have any clients anymore. Not that I've stopped training, it's just things come up, recession, What I do with my clients is, firstly, I always try to train them super efficiently. So most of their training sessions wouldn't be more than 40 minutes. Basically, you hit your main lifts, which you pretty much have to do those traditionally or cluster sets, just because if you do those in like myo reps, for example, you run into a lot of issues. You can, but it's tough. So you do those, and then you have 2 to 3 accessories, which you do myo reps, which are very fast. So if you are rushing through the session, that's a really easy fix. Just talk to me, and I can help you with that. But if you're rushing through each rep, then there's a fix you can do where you lower the reps. That way you just focus on doing it like 5 to 6 times. If you're looking to build muscle, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to train. I want to build muscle. I want to look better, especially because you're an actor. So I know look is a big thing. You can change how you approach that in a way to basically, when it comes to training, there's research behind this, where as long as you're close to failure, you will get very similar results. So, say you do 5 reps, but you do all of them slowly, you will get close and is close to failure. You will get very similar reps to if you did the same thing, but 10 reps at twice the speed, as long as you're close to failure. So, if you're rushing through reps, you can either do less of them slower, that should help with attention span, or if you just do them fast, just do more of them with a lighter weight. Okay, you were rushing through reps. So, like I said, it's one of those two. I would self-experiment, or you can just DM me and talk to me about it. But you could try to do less reps. Definitely prefer smaller sets. So yeah, try to do sets between 5 and 10, then and just do the reps slowly. One, it will cause you to pay attention because if you're doing them slowly, like say, this is brutal, but I'm going to recommend it. I count of 5 up, pause for 2, count of 5 down. If you don't, if you get let's use deadlifts. If you reach the top of the deadlift before you hit 5 or at 5, you're going too fast. It should be slightly after you say 5, either out loud or in your head. Pause for 2. So you're going to pause at the top, and then if you touch the ground before you hit 5, you're going too fast. And just remember that and do sets of 5. There's a lot of 5s in that. So up for 5, pause for 2, down for 5 reps. And let's start off with 3 sets. Okay? If you don't have access to a gym, you could do it with push-ups. So go down for 5. You shouldn't hit the bottom for a count of 5. And then pause for 2, up for 5. You shouldn't have fully extended arms until you hit 5. Obviously, push-ups, it depends. If you do decline push-ups, 5 reps of 5, depending how strong you are. And if you're doing... They are taking the trash, and there's nothing I can do about that. If you hear it. If you don't hear it, yay. If you do hear it, like I do, I don't know what to tell you. This mic picks up literally everything. The only reason I'm not jerking off right now is because the mic would hear the slapping sounds. Although I'm a bit slower because I like to caress my penis because I don't abuse it. Anyway, yeah, so try that next time you're lifting. By the way, these live streams are a great time for you to just ask lifting questions because I can't help myself but to answer them because that's something I do love. Let's go on catching up with chat. A long shark is emerging. Let's hope not. Yes, I do jerk off for 525. Go up slow, pause, slight squeeze. Down for 5. If you need sex advice, I can help you there too. I don't know. I've only had sex with one person. But I assume I'm good at it, because she says I'm good at it, and if she's lying to me, well, I don't want her to ever tell me the truth. Also, I don't ever want her to leave me or die, because I don't know how to talk to women. Except for talking about dicks and assholes. Let's see, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Arthur C. Clarke. Oh, so he said it. Is that a fictional character or a real person? Who knows? We'll find that out one day. The meme. Most personal trainers don't know what to do with ADHD, I find. Not because they don't want to, but like you said, we only have some we only have a neurotypical standard to go by. Yeah. And obviously neurotypical is typical. Like I said, we usually you learn by general and then you adjust to individual. I wouldn't even say that I could train someone with ADHD. I mean, I could. Right? I absolutely could train someone with ADHD. But it would be more trial and error where I'm like, okay, you did this. How'd you feel? What was going on? You tell me, I adjust to that. And it's honestly no different than training anyone else. It's a big system of feedback where a lot of it's communication. I can't write you the best program first time around. I write you a program based on how you answer my thing. Then, obviously, if you see any glaring issues, you tell me, I adjust, you try it out, you tell me how you feel, we adjust, so on and so forth, until it's tweaked to the point where it works perfectly for you. That's just how any good trainer will work. Yeah, looking with standards it's my ability to exercise so they can tweak the program. Yeah, exactly. So every good trainer will just tweak a program. None of them are going to be specialized in ADHD because, as far as I know, there's not really a physical. I don't want to say that. A neuromuscular difference. It's more adjusting to the neurological side. So if you can do that, you'll be golden as a trainer. Which a lot of trainers can't. A lot of them, especially the super popular meme ones with the big fake titties, they are really bad at their fucking job. But they keep getting work because they look great. Which I can't say I do. I mean, I look pretty good, but honestly, having a six-pack is so overrated. I don't want to fucking barely eat all the time. And I have big ab muscles. I just don't care. I'm just like, you know what? I have big arms, I have big legs, I have a very small power belly. You can't even tell when I'm wearing a shirt. But I know more than the fucking guy with the 12-pack. So, it's more about finding a trainer who knows what they're doing than someone who looks really good. That's part of the problem. How do you sift through the amount of information and figure out what's good or bad for you when you are clueless? Yep, that's honestly gets a lot of people. That's the huge problem with beginners. It's like, what do you even start with? That's why I say try with a textbook. I am not condoning pirating textbooks. Pirating textbooks is wrong. Anyway, I'm totally not endorsing it at all. It's not like textbooks are fucking $500 for something you're going to read once. But yeah, there is good information out there. You just have to find it. Even if I made a guide on finding quality information, most people would probably not see it. But I should still make a guide on finding quality information on health and fitness. Oh, Meme, I'm sorry you missed deadlifting. Why can't you do deadlifting anymore? Do you just not have access to a gym? Because if that's the case, then like I feel your pain. And there's not really anything you can do about it. I mean, you can get like a pull-up station or pull-up bar. That'd be a good idea. It's not deadlifts, obviously, but you know. Or you can buy dumbbells. Dumbbells are great. They're like super underrated. Adjustable dumbbells are expensive though. And obviously, regular dumbbells, you can't change the weight. Well, you can. So if you get if you buy dumbbell handles and then buy like weights that fit them, that is probably the best thing you can do. The reason why is that actual weights don't go anywhere. I mean, they can be stored quite easily. find a corner and you stack them. Now, getting the weights you need, that'll be a pain in the ass, but they don't take up a lot of room. You're looking into resistance bands at the moment. Oh, me and we need to talk. Okay? During the COVID bullshit, this isn't monetized, so I don't give a shit about what I say. During that bullshit, I trained my girlfriend on resistance bands. The problem with those is that, so she could deadlift with I want to say 250-pound resistance band. But what happens with those is you get really strong at part of the movement. Now that might not seem like an issue, but where she can deadlift with a 250-pound band, she can barely do it with 235-pound dumbbells. So while resistance bands have their place, I would recommend against relying on them. If you have an issue with setup right now, use resistance bands as a supplement to calisthenics. All you really need is probably a pull-up bar. Getting a good one's kind of difficult because you want one that's not going to damage your door and one that will support your weight, which is why a pull-up station's a little bit better. But if you live by a park with like a jungle gym, that's even better. You get to walk, you do your pull-ups, you go back inside. But calisthenics are the better way to go. Or just get like a pair of like decently heavy dumbbells. Or just one. It'll take a little bit longer because you gotta do one side and then the other side. But that's the better way to go. Or you can use sandbags. Get a duffel bag, which is cheap and easily to store. And find something that weighs something. Chains work. Bags of little rocks. I know that sounds weird, but those work too. Just something that will provide you weight and just use that bag. As long as it's sturdy, you can pretty much do every exercise you need with a sandbag. Like, it's one of the cheapest ways to have an all-purpose equipment. Alright, we gotta keep catching up with... Oh, let's skip to the bottom. Oh, there's not that much to read. Of mine is that the internal hyperactivity of ADHD is quelled by exercise, probably due to the dopamine release. Yeah. And that's what the studies also theorized with other important hormones. Secretin, I think it's called. Call my show Hammer Time? Maybe. I'll go through some stuff. Thank you, Alexander, for liking my voice. People say it's nice, but when I hear it, I feel like I sound kind of retarded. And I mean that seriously. So, don't take offense to that, neurodivergent people. It's just, I don't care that much about using correct wording all the time. But when I'm, like, talking about, like, research, I will try to remain PC. But if I'm chilling, I use whatever word comes to mind. A timer app that works with that? I think there is. I am just unfamiliar with them. Yeah, because six packs look nice, but they're hard to sustain. Unless you are genetically gifted, you have to be at a very low body fat percentage to keep a six pack. And a lot of times it's not worth it. Like, if you look at any bodybuilder, they don't look like that 90% of the year. They look like that for their competition. They do their competition, and they pig out as fast as they can. Can't really afford weights at the moment. Adjustable dumbbells wouldn't work for ADHD reasons. So I'd rather do resistance bands because otherwise I'd do nothing. I also do yoga. Yoga is pretty pog. I recommend yoga to anyone who wants to do it. It's just, yoga's presented as cringe for a couple of reasons. Obviously, if you look up yoga on YouTube, you find half these girls with their like cooches in the camera. And I'm like, you know what you're doing. Most of the people watching this aren't watching this for yoga. They're jerking off. You know that, don't you? But yoga's pretty dope. I did yoga for football. Helped so much with my balance. It's insane. So if you take yoga seriously, don't look it up on YouTube half the time because those girls are just presenting their cooches to you. And honestly, I'm not complaining. But you're not going to get everything out of yoga you need to. Like, actually look into legit yoga sources, and it's very helpful. But if you rather use resistance bands, that's fine. Just pair them with some kind of weights. Even if you can't afford weights, I would honestly say really look into a pull-up bar of some kind. I got mine used. I don't know what they have in Australia. I got mine off of OfferUp. If you live in a relatively populated town, it shouldn't be that hard to find one. But I got mine for like $25. It's awesome. Just be careful how you mount it, because in my current apartment, I mounted it a little fucked up because I use towels because they can't damage your walls a little bit. Just a little bit. It's not like super serious, but they can damage your walls a little bit. So, but because I used the towels and I didn't leave it up there, sometimes it wouldn't get installed correctly. So it fucked up the thing, the door frame, and I fell and hurt my back a little bit. Not too bad. Growing up really clumsy, you learn how to fall without hurting yourself. Like, anytime I fall backwards, I immediately tuck my chin. Like it's instinct. That way I don't hit my head. And anytime I fall forward, I try to turn or brace myself with my hands. But yeah, so I would recommend getting a pull-up bar. Even if you're like, yeah, I still want to get resistance bands, it at least gives you somewhere high that you could install the resistance bands so you can do different kinds of pulls. Yeah, that's you can do pull-ups on it. You just have to if it can a good pull-up bar will support your weight. I guarantee I weigh a lot more than you do. I'm getting a call, which might be a job, but I'm not going to answer it right now because I am doing this. I'll call back right after this. But if you are doing if it can support your weight on a loose hang, it can support your weight during a pull-up. Absolutely. Like, I weigh 250 pounds, which is like 113 kilograms in non-American terms. If you weigh less than me, you'll be fine. And the benefit of the bands, which is really interesting, is if you get like multiple bands, because I have a lot of them, you can, if you can't do a pull-up, you can set it up to assist you do a pull-up. And like, you do like, say, work your way up to 8 reps. Then once you can do 8 reps with that band, you change that band out for a lighter band and work your way up to 8 and repeat that process until you can do it without a band. You learn how to do a pull-up without any with bands, which is really nice. But yeah, I would if you do have a pull-up bar, if you weigh like as much as me or less, because most of them support up to 300 pounds, or at least up to 250. So if you find one that can support that, you should probably be able to do pull-ups. And this is a sneaky thing that I've learned. If you have a sturdy door, you can do pull-ups on your door. Just make sure you put something under the other end of the door that will support it. And also clean your door because you're rubbing up all on it to do this. It will change the path of your pull-ups a bit and will super focus on your lats because your forearms can't move forward. It's a little sneaky trick. It's not the best exercise. Regular pull-ups are way better. Chin-ups, to be exact. But that one is a cheaper way to do that. So yeah, I would say get a pull-up bar. And honestly, really try to do pull-ups because working your back's really important. I'm going to assume you're not a woman with big titties. But if you are a woman with big titties, it's even more important for you to work your back so you don't have back problems. Because those titties will get you. If you're not a woman with big titties, having a thick back is just, I'm going to be honest, it's amazing. It is, there are a few things better than having a thick, luscious back. Number one, women want to touch that shit. Oh my God, they want to touch it. They'll be like, Two, it just looks great. Especially if you can see it from the front. Oh my God, dude. Looks fantastic. Helps with that V-taper shape. So yeah, I'd highly recommend pull-ups if you can squeeze them in. Especially if you cannot do rows. If you could do rows, I would say those are better. Especially if you're a bit heavier. Because while you might not trust a pull-up bar, you can always do rows. Those are a little bit better. You can always do inverted rows, but you need two chairs of the same size, like two of the exact same chair. If you could do that, you could do inverted rows, or they're also called Australian pull-ups because apparently y'all are bitches and use the easier version of a pull-up. So, yeah, those are another alternative if you just don't trust your pull-up bar. If you have two chairs that are exactly the same, do that. Do Australian pull-ups. Just look it up on YouTube. Those are really good. Speaking of stand up straight without thinking about it's amazing. Yeah, work your back, meme. Yoga's not going to do it all. You need strong back muscles too. Right? Man, flexing your lats, good feeling. Anyway, we're about at 2 hours. This lasted a lot longer than I thought it would. My throat kind of hurts a little bit. Mostly because I haven't talked this long in a long time. I have no friends, so I don't talk to people that much. I talk to my girlfriend, but talking to women. But yeah, I don't usually talk this long. I wanted to project a little bit. Yeah. So, let's recap a little bit. Basically, the show is irregular until I find a reason to keep doing it regularly. And even if it is going to be regular, it probably won't be every week. It might be every other week. I don't know. As the show continues, it might get a bit more segmented to where maybe I'll cover like one paper earlier and then one paper later and then cut that bitch in half and upload different episodes. But yeah, so don't expect this regularly. If you're in the Discord, you might know when another show is coming up. That being said, I think this show's better than my pathetic attempt to emulate EFAP for exercise videos. So, yeah. Hope you learned something. Hope you had fun discussing vaguely fitness and extremely vaguely media topics with me. If you're in the EFAP Discord, I'll see you there. If you're not, think about joining. My paper, the actual paper, will be posted to my blog, and there will be a link in the description probably later today. So, if you want to read the actual paper, go there. Link will be in the description later. I don't know what else to say. Something about shit and cum and blood. Yeah, get swole, everybody. Figure out what you enjoy. Calisthenics, running, whatever. If you have any ideas for the next episode, throw them in the comments or something. How do I end this? I don't know. Penises and cum. Bye.